I know Kung Fu.
Show me.
You are the new student. Come closer.
You're listening to the Kung Fu Podcast presented by James Still.
I don't care if it's Muhammad, Imard, Bruce Lee.
And Steve Newby.
This is the original 5 Fingers of Death right here.
But my hands are registered as lethal weapons. That means we get into a fight, I accidentally kill you, I go to jail.
We don't know. Unscripted, the unscripted mess that is. Okay, we'll just start, shall we? What the hell? Let's throw caution to the wind. Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast with me, James Still, and the notorious old man newbie himself, all the way from Canada, Steve. How you doing?
Good day.
You're right. Well,
yeah, just got home. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's still on lockdown. Well, it's voluntary lockdown here. It's not.
Well, it's Canada after all. Please don't spread the virus, please.
Yeah.
Well, over here, got to come at you with clubs and all sorts and tasers.
Well, apparently, there's been over 400 private parties been broken up in Manchester alone. Right?
Oh, yeah, no.
How stupid are they?
Oh, it's funny.
Because your toll is building, and in England the toll is building. Well, UK generally, the toll is building, and they're taking absolutely no notice of it.
Wow.
And
absolutely.
So one of the things we really should say on our podcast is stay safe and do some bloody physical separation, whatever it's called, physical
social distancing. That's what's called.
Well, they don't call it social distancing now because it's stopping people from talking to each other.
Oh, is it?
So it's called physical distancing. Yeah.
Oh, right. Well, that sounds better. I think the other one, social distancing, just to me made no sense.
Well, it stops people. Yeah, it stops people socialising. Well, there's nothing wrong with socialising as long as you're talking to each other through the phone or on, your YouTube or whatever else, or Messenger, and across the garden fence.
That's it, like Wilson, across the garden fence. Yeah. If you're at home, practice your Kung Fu, guys, for God's sake. Get on with it. Do your sets, do something.
And if you want any information, there's lots of people trying to give general information to people, doing little videos of training, do this, do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you to do this, do that. I'm just going to say, why? This is my attitude is show me what you're doing and then tell me why you're doing it, because that's going to improve you.
Listen, that kind of attitude from you will get you in trouble, and it will get me in trouble, because we are probably the most notorious people in the UK as far as Kung Fu is concerned at the moment.
Is that why?
Not only are we number one in the Kung Fu podcast in the UK, but we even got kicked off the official Lau Gar Kung Fu blogspot page on Facebook.
Is that because we're the only people talking about actually Lau Gar?
It was kind of funny. It's worth saying that we did get reinstated, which is very kind of them. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, it's not like you're not a guardian, Steve. And although,
no, I know, but well, I'm in Canada now, so maybe they just can, forget me. Out of sight, out of mind, isn't it? It's not absence makes the heart grow fonder. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Oh well.
But they just deleted our thing because I guess we were talking about Lau Gar, and I don't know. Maybe that's the reason. But when I look at all the videos that are stuck on there, they're all different people from different places doing different things. They're absolutely nothing to do with the association. So what we want to do is we want to make the association great.
Yes.
We can't do that ourselves, but what we can do is make people think about it.
Yeah.
Think about what you're doing to this association and how you can make it better.
Guys, it can be your greatest, strength, or it can be a great weakness. Division will cause weakness within associations.
That's right, and unity is strength.
Absolutely.
Now, you just got to have people have all got to think on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody's got to look to the style as opposed to like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it that way? Well, friggin' ask.
Yeah.
Just ask. Send. Well, this social media now. If someone doesn't like what I'm saying about a thing, they can stick themselves on their phone and say, and send a messenger and say, "Hey, Steve, I do it like this. I don't do it your way." And I'm going, well, that's great. I love that. That's fantastic. I'll do it that way now because it makes sense. But first, it's got to make sense.
Yeah, no, it has got to make sense.
But
go on.
Bearing in mind, as isn't the only way, remember that everything that's taught in Lau is taught with lots of different options in mind. No one is a clone. No one's ever going to do it exactly the same. Not even a student is going to do it the same as the teacher, because they're going to recognize what they need for their kind of body or their kind of attitude. They might like to punch and kick, so that's what their preference is. Or they might prefer, maybe smaller in stature. They might prefer to be able to avoid and kick the shins and run up the lumps or something like that. So it's just about making sure that people understand why they're doing it, what the logic is in what they're doing. And of course it's got to look something like the set or the move, right? Don't change it to suit you. Change it, well, you're not even changing it, you're just utilizing what is already there. So it may be different to what other people are teaching. It may be different usefulness.
Yeah.
We've already established there are at least theoretically 6 different ways of employing a particular move, and then that's got to be dissected again and again and again. So in the first set we've already established, in theory, you can have 1,600,000 different uses.
Yeah.
Plus, and people say, well, we ain't got time in our class to learn that.
Well,
no, you haven't.
Most people are too busy getting to the next set and the next set. More input, like that bloody robot input. But it's true though. I think, and that's not a bad thing. But I think what you've got to do is just appreciate in the moment where you are.
You found an article the other day about Mastiao from 1980 something, I don't know.
Yeah, but interviewed by Bay Logan. Bay Logan, for anyone who doesn't know, is an ex-editor of Combat Magazine, and he also does all the movie commentaries on all the Hong Kong Legends films that have been released in the UK. So he gets basically where Epsom salts doesn't get. So Jesus Christ. But he doesn't. I don't think he's a great fan of Master Yao now. I've read some articles on him talking, dissing my style, bruv. You know what I mean? And but anyway, go on. Yeah.
What do you mean? Go on. You've just completely thrown my.
Right. But you were talking about the article where Master Yao was being interviewed by Bay Logan. Yeah. Oh, and by the way, guys, keep it going. We've Bay Logan had a podcast. He doesn't do it anymore, but we've overtaken him in the ranks. So good for you guys. If you're listening to this, big thumbs up to all of y'all, and thank you for your continued support. So anyway, what were you saying?
So you were talking about Mastiao's article, and a lot of the things he says, obviously, he's talking about the way things are, useful in lots of different ways and so on. So it's really important to understand that when you're training.
Yeah.
To get involved in the movement itself, and in the old days, as he says in his article, you would learn a set until your teacher was ready for you to learn another one.
Right.
It's not like I'm going to learn this set, then can I take my grading, and then start learning just so I can learn a new set. No, if you take your grading, don't bloody forget your old syllabus, because you will go right up the ranks, learn lots of big long forms, that you have absolutely no understanding of, because you don't understand your very first sets. You don't understand the way and the reason and the purposes and really the direction that set takes you. There are lots of different characters to each set, and we were talking about Fei Lun Chi, weren't we, about the internal, if you want to call it that, because that's a coined phrase. That is, you know, the movement that can be done without appearing to be a movement, the power that can be established without appearing to create power. That's why a dragon is elusive. All right, in other words, you can't find them, you can't see them. Okay, so the whole point of that set is to develop that kind of rotational and development and close in, a lot of releases, a lot of, you know, diversions of energy and so on, and rotations of energy, so you can, you know, lock and twist and hold and so on. It's not all about just finger strikes. Flower Fist, obviously it's got a name for a reason. It means a set with many different options, if you want. Chinese is very, very difficult to interpret into English, and so lots of people have lots of different ideology of what it means. So
later on we're going to be talking about Lau Gar Lookup Kun, so stay tuned for that. I didn't know where this was going, this podcast, to be honest, but now we've sort of started speaking a bit about going up through the learning your syllabus and not forgetting the old stuff, whatnot. What would be an interesting thing to get your opinion on is how we interpret the two-man forms in Lau Gar, and by that I mean the hand blocks and the kick blocks, and basically what we can do, what you can do to make them better, because there's nothing worse than seeing a lackadaisical hand block or kick block, in my opinion. It just looks lazy. You know, I always liken them to fast food, obviously, because they were created in a period of time where classes were huge, drilling was important, people needed that fix, they needed to know, if I step back block punch, that could work. But that's right, it could work, but you've got to train it to work. But obviously I think a lot of the meaning of them, as certainly throughout the years the classes have got smaller, whatnot, you know, I think the meaning of them has kind of been lost. You know, what's your thoughts?
Well, they weren't available in Master Yao's day in Hong Kong. They were never there, they were never used. It was far more likely that you would take a set apart and use instances of it, which is what I've directed you to do when you grade and so on. I'm going to be implementing that and making sure that people have some kind of option, knowledge of the form by doing the form and then giving me some examples of it. I'm not trying to make the grading different. I'm trying to make it more appropriate to learning.
That's the point, because you don't say, I'm trying to make it better, because
how
I'm
not
do you
trying to
find
make
that? But you want people to try and just open their mind a bit more to what it is they're doing. Well,
look, you've got to do the form anyway. Okay, you've got to understand what the form's for. So show me an example. That's all I'm asking. Show me an example. Don't just do the form, because you watch people just do the form by rote. I watched, you know, people doing it at the Nationals, at different forms. I'm not going to say what form. I'm not going to insult anybody. I'm just saying, you do a form, you go through it, and it's blatantly obvious that you don't really understand what that movement might be for. I mean, it's fantastic that you've got the courage to go out there and do a form at the Nationals. It's brilliant that you practice as hard as you can to do that form in something like the Nationals, or any competition for that matter. But it's really important to me, and I would like it to be important to your instructor, if you still have one, to understand what the moves are actually doing when you do them, because otherwise it's like having a plastic book. You can't see the writing, you just see straight through it, and it doesn't give you any story, it doesn't give you any usefulness, it doesn't give you any knowledge. It just simply is like a plastic transparent book.
the physicality of what you do is a small part of it, guys. It's it really is. We have to understand what it is we're doing. Every movement, every position of the foot, every weight shift, everything from where your little toe is on the floor to to whatever, to what your eyes are doing.
But we have to emphasise, James, also that we understand totally that there are levels that people can understand this.
Absolutely.
A total beginner and lower grades are going to have absolutely no idea of why they're doing it. But what I'm trying to get these people to do, the beginners, is get more from their training by asking more questions. Once they ask those questions, they force the instructors to then go and ask questions. There's your unity. Yes. There's where everyone's going, right, we need to understand, we're going to be on the same page. It encourages them to go to courses where they're going to gain more information. And again, I mean, is it too late? We're in different people doing different courses now, so we're going to have different opinions anyway. But like I said before, no one is a clone. We're all going to be different. So why don't we learn from someone? Yeah. And then if we can't digest it, we can't understand what it's for, ask people. There are so many people that have got the capability of giving you answers, whether they're right answers or wrong answers, whether they're appropriate answers for your stature or they're not. Totally depends on you able to understand those answers by asking the questions. And continue, and don't stop asking questions.
Yeah, but it's like we mentioned last week. It's not disrespect to question people who are teaching you. Albeit politely, and it's not.
You're not questioning the people. You're
no.
questioning the technique that you're asking. What is it for? No, yes. If they're giving you something that has no meaning, then you have every right to find out why. I mean, that's like saying, okay, driving instructing, right? Okay, yeah, you're going to turn left there, right? But you're not going to use your mirrors or anything like that, and then, so what's going to happen? It's going to be a very difficult situation for you. Yeah. And then you're going to say, yeah, but the instructor never told me that. Yeah. And so ask the instructor, what do I do now? What do I do now? This is what I do. And then the instructor's got to come back with, you're going to use your mirrors because you need to see the traffic behind you, coming up behind you before you slow down. You're going to need to look over your shoulders to make sure there's no one trying to get past you, and so on and so forth. And it's just a matter of logic, really. Yeah. Ask the questions. Why am I doing this technique? Why am I doing this block? Well, the reason you're doing out there is because, I mean, let's go back to those hand blocks and kick blocks. Sure. Devised specifically, as you say, for learning by rote en masse. Okay, yeah. So it's very easy to provide someone with a basic example, and all these hand blocks and kick blocks are simply vehicles to build information, right? But it's really, for me, I'll give you an example. Number one hand block isn't to learn how to defend, it's to learn how to attack. Right. That's the way I see it, because invariably when someone stands there in a fighting stance ready to punch, they overstep. Yes. That means that their right hip goes forwards and their right hand then starts to swing around to the left. Yeah. And then you've got a beginner who is then forced, because that's the nature of the form or of the hand block, to try to block something which is swinging towards his left. Yeah. It's just going to push his block out the way. His block's not going to work so well. He's going to get hit on the shoulder or whatever, because it becomes more of a swinging punch because of the way his stance is. So it's really important that the teacher is explaining the way the person attacks. The way I do that, let me explain the way I do that. So, okay, you've got two people learning number one hand block. The attacker is the most important thing. He's learning to attack, because once he's learned how to attack with that one, he can do all the others. Yeah. It's not a problem. He's learning his steps. So first off, his range. Don't get him to punch, get him to push. So now he's going to be able to push the person on the chest, or if it's a female, you tend to grab the neck or something like that, because people don't like being pressed on the chest. So it's a simple adjustment. Just push them. Okay, it's really important. Push them in the center. That means your feet have got to be dead straight, and if they're not, and you can't push them straight, and you start going off to the left with your right hand, make them do it with both hands. So get the attacker, to step forward and push with both hands, and that will keep them dead straight. If it doesn't, they're obviously going to notice that very quickly. So get them to push with both hands against the shoulders, push the defender back. Defender does nothing, doesn't try to block, anything like that, just simply push them back on the shoulders, and you'll get your range, because you'll be able to push them right across the room quite happily, and don't overdo it if they're like half the size of you. And that's what I see people doing. Okay, so you're pushing them like that, you get your feet right, you get your direction right, and then you can start throwing a single push, and because you've got your range right, you can start throwing a punch. The other person can defend a lot better from a decent attacker, and if they can defend a decent attacker, they can easily defend a very poor attacker. And so that's the set off, that's the first point of call when you're starting to do hand blocks.
See, this is where, like, obviously I am not, arguing against you. But this is where I slightly have a different interpretation of it, which, is a good thing, because everything should be up for argument. See,
of course.
You're obviously within the confines of a two-man set or hand block number one. It's important to have good attackers, because, in order to be a good defender, you must have good attackers. But I've always, I always thought, right, okay, so the most important part in hand block number one is the defender stepping back, or so we say distance, and not just the distance itself, but it's the perception of the movement coming towards you. Now, regardless of the attacker's attack, it might be a good attack as per the hand block, or it might be a lackadaisical attack, but nevertheless the step back is always going to be your defense. So I was always I've always gone with the attitude that the step back is the most important initial concept to learn from the hand blocks. But obviously you want to learn to be able to attack, because but when we talk about but Mr. Newbie, you remember you've always said that how many times does your attack have to land in order to be effective once? How many times does your defense have to work? Well, it can work indefinitely before it's useful. So you see, this is where the juxtaposition of my thoughts on it are: is it better to initially think of it as a more defensive thing, as in get the movement right, or is it better to attack?
Well,
did that make sense?
I'll tell you in a minute.
Oh god.
Right, I'm going to repeat what I've just said, and make the simple point that you've got to be a good attacker in order to be good defenders, or you've got to have good attackers in order to be good defenders. So if the attacker is poor and he keeps on swinging his arm over to your left, you're going to adapt all the time, you're going to adjust all the time, and you're never going to be able to defend against a dead straight punch, because the person will always have a bad punch. So my point is nothing to do with the defense. I didn't get as far as the defense.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Newby.
I only taught the person to attack. So once the person can attack, now the person will have to step back, because he's going to have a very good straight punch coming at him, but and he won't be able to kind of knock it aside, because you can't, the defense isn't left to right, with your right hand lifting up from the left and blocking to the right. It's a forward motion, or let's interpret it another way, it's actually a stationary motion. And your body is moving.
So can
backwards.
I know you want to finish this point, but just so we're absolutely clear for people listening, we're talking about the motion of beauty looks in the mirror, okay? Or tansa, or whatever you want to call it, guys, but that motion there. Now you're saying it's not a swinging motion. If we're looking at hand block number one, so you're going to be doing it with your left hand, you're not swinging it from right to left in that way. It is more of a forward and a backward thing. So if you're placing it out in front of you, the direction of that technique is now going forward instead of swinging left to right. That's essentially what you're saying. I've got to make that clear.
Yeah, no, that's fine. The further forward you go, the less you need to go outwards, because simply the further forward you go, the further out his arm will go. But I want to sort of go off track for a second. Okay, I know that we do. We always see on the YouTube, you see these fights. There's a guy in China, I've forgotten his name, okay, and he's really been treated badly.
Yeah,
He's a UFC guy, yeah, and he really wants to, prove bad martial arts, right? So these twats decide that they're going to fight this UFC fighter on his terms, in a ring, full frontal, and then they try to put their hands out and try to defend themselves in that way. But that just isn't going to work, right? First of all, they haven't done the training that he's done. They've not prepared for it. You can see they've not prepared for it. Most of them are old men anyway, so they're not going to be capable of taking that strain and that power from a much bigger person. And so they're completely, making a fool of themselves. That's not what martial arts is. It's not about confronting someone and fighting a duel. Most certainly, if they were of equal stature, equal age, equal, kind of weight or whatever, they'd stand a better chance anyway. But you've got to train for that. Now, sticking your hand out and trying to block something, he's going to see where your hands are straight off. Is he going to aim at your hands? Is he going to aim at the position where your hands are anyway? No. He's going to just throw punches at the openings. That's what he's out to do. So all you're doing is saying, oh, look, this is where my hands are. Therefore, where they're not are my openings. So you're just telling him exactly what you're doing. And I can never see or understand someone that actually tries to challenge someone who is evidently more prepared than them to win that contest.
But you're not just talking about the physicality in that specific case, because you're talking about ring craft as well. You're talking about strategy. You're talking about there's so many elements that when you're in quotation marks a traditional martial artist, and you step into that arena with someone who's claiming to expose fake masters, then you've got to damn well know what you're stepping into.
Yeah, it's not only that, the psychology of it. The one guy is determined to win, and you're trying to show him. You're not trying to necessarily beat. You know what you're up against, but you kind of giving yourself a false sense of what you're capable of, and that 90% of the time, it's a self-defense situation. It's not a ring situation with a seasoned fighter, right? In fact, that's probably 0.5% of any fight, and that's your choice. And if you choose that 0.5% to end up fighting someone who's trained for it, he's fit, he's ready to go, and he's determined to win, you got a major fight on your hands. The objective of your self-defense is to be simply in a street where someone is going to grab you. The biggest thing you've got in your arsenal is secrecy. Is that they don't know that you're capable of defending yourself. They're a bully. They come to you with one intent. They don't come to you totally prepared. They come to you with the intention, and they think they're going to win. They don't know they're going to win. They don't see what you can do. They don't know what you can do. And you are simply defending yourself by responding to the initial attack. Now, obviously, you've got to have some power there, and you've got to have some logic there, and you've got to have a different determined to end the fight.
Yeah, well, I would argue as well, you've got to have a bit of artifice about you as well, a bit of cunning, because the worst thing you can do is to stand in front
cunning
of someone.
Yeah,
absolutely. But
you're already being cunning by not telling them, by not advertising,
right?
You can do it.
Yeah, exactly. So the worst thing you can do is stand in front of them in a fighting stance, advertising to the world, oh, hello. I might think I know something.
Yes, and then in addition to that, the rules are stipulated that you cannot end the fight quickly. You cannot stand there and he throws a punch and your fingers go in his eyes. You cannot stand there and kick us down. I mean, you can apparently, by looking at that, you can kick to the legs, but these guys are older guys. They're not going to have the stamina, they're not going to have the power of this younger guy who's trained all his life for it. I mean, they are just putting themselves in a stupid risk for no reason. Not only that, they're giving traditional martial arts a bad name. And don't forget, traditional martial arts was designed to fight people in reality, but it was never designed to sort of, you know, as an old man, you're going to be able to sit in a ring, stand in a ring, and fight with a set of rules that have no relevance to your style. Do you know what I mean? It just is so
I think they've
stupid.
been watching too many Donnie Yen films. Have you seen? Have you seen the Ip Man, where Ip Man of all people fights Mike Tyson?
Oh shit!
Yeah, exactly. I was like, come on, you know, it's Mike Tyson, man. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I believe in peace. But you know, it's just ludicrous, and it's, you know, it's very, but you know, and no wonder communist China don't like that. You know, putting to shame their
nothing
culture.
of China likes it. Yeah,
of course.
Well, to be honest with you, the communist government put their own culture to shame anyway, because they destroyed most of it. So you know, because they didn't see it in the same way. Everyone's equal, except some are more equal than others.
Right.
That's why when you go to
dictator.
when you go to exactly, when you go to China and you see all these businessmen with loads and loads of, you know, Mercedes parked out their car at their houses and everything, and they're making all the money because in order to I mean, in Vancouver, for God's sake, Jesus Christ, you know, they always tell me, they say the worst people, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it is, you know what it's like, young, rich Chinese people. I'm talking about Chinese specifically, so I'm not being prejudiced in that way. I'm talking about the Chinese from bloody China. You know, I think that's the most people that you get is Chinese from China. You know, it would be the same, no doubt. It was Germans from Germany or British from Britain. But I'm just talking about this culture because of the communism. Okay, and although it might have its benefits, in the end, it's like they all their parents are rich, so they sort of really play up because of it. And the reason their parents are rich is because they have a hand in with a lot of government officials who get a scrape off the top of the action, and the next thing you know, they're all rich. So it's a funny culture because it's communist and yet capitalist at the same time. It's really weird.
Selective capitalism.
That's a really good way of putting it. So
anyway, we went from Hamlock #1 to communism. Hey, you get your money's worth with this podcast, people. You really do. I'll tell you, no wonder we're #1 UK Kung Fu podcast.
But just for the record, going to China is one of the best things you could possibly do. It is one of the most beautiful places and the most really beautiful people that you can imagine. It is an amazing place.
I tell you, I've never felt the calling, you know.
You've got to go. You've got to go. So many things to do, so many things to see, so much food to eat.
Oh,
you know,
I don't fancy looking down on me dinner and an octopus leg, you know,
no,
flopping
it's
out
not
the
like
bowl. And I floating to the top of it, blinking. Anyway, we were talking about Hamlock #1, and I put an argument to you.
Yeah. Which I didn't need to answer it because I hadn't got to that point yet. The stepping back is extremely important, yes, but it's nothing to do with the attacker, right? I did say that the attacker will push and push, Once the person has finished and got better at attacking and attacking in a much more linear way, then of course you now have a much better direct punch. From that, don't get punched, step back. You step, but you're not. Are you stepping back? Is a question for beginners. Are you stepping back? Are you consolidating your position? In other words, as the person steps forward, all you're doing is consolidating your stance. And as you do so, naturally you'll be stepping backwards because that's how you consolidate your stance, by making a good fighting position.
Another interesting point is the attacker has to make one full step, but the defender only has to make half a step.
Yes.
So explain that, Mr. Newbie.
Well, the attacker is stepping from a fighting position with his left foot forward and his right foot back. He's got to take his right foot across his left foot on the way to step it forward, making a full step. Okay. Now, if you want to elaborate, you can call it a half-moon step, you can call it a crescent step, but basically he's stepping forwards. The defender, however, is standing with his feet level and apart. His knees are bent, and so he doesn't have to lean forward in order to move his leg. He doesn't have to first sit in order to move his leg. He doesn't have to try to move his leg while he's dead straight lock legs. Otherwise he's just either giving his face, giving his groin, or taking too much time. So basically he's sat in a nice comfortable position, and as the person moves, all he's got to do is push on the one leg, and that's it. He's stepping back on the right, so he's pushing off the left leg and sinking and consolidating his position. At the same time putting his hand out, his block, leaving his hand where it is, in the line from where it was on his waist or near his chest, or wherever you want to start it, to beauty looks in the mirror, to the point of the center, or half a wok, as we would call it.
Half a wok. So basically what you're saying is your body will move back, but your hand performing the block or strike or whatever you want to call it is almost stationary.
And all it's doing is rotating. So you're picking the mirror up, rotating it round and looking at it.
But this is where you see a lot of people do a big swing, like I've seen friggin' karate do, and taekwondo do a hell of a lot of that.
Well, they are trying to do power blows, aren't they?
Everything. But the argument from taekwondo, I mean, I heard them say, was like, well, we're blocking, we're swinging our arm across the body to make sure it's covered before we go out. I'm like, hang on, but how long does it take you to get there? He's hit you before you move, before you get your hand in position, and it's just like, wow, okay, fine. But listen, hey, we're all different, but you've got an interpretation of it. But just so happens that the Lau is based on speed, and we have a kind of a good idea of what it is to be economical. Not that we're the best, but we do.
I think it's also important to protect any instructors who are teaching this. They are going to teach it in a very simplistic way. All I'm putting across is how it will evolve. If you think of it in that way, you will evolve faster if you know that, if you have that knowledge. But you must repeat it and repeat it and repeat it, then it becomes natural, and you will have far more flow and far more rotation in your movements, any hand movements, not just the first hand block, but any movements. And if you watch our video, which is showing you another video, which is on YouTube, I think is it the fourth one of the sticky hands, where we start to use them to defend in the sticky hands, where we use the hand blocks. So we're basically doing sticky hands, but using the hand blocks to define where you end up in a simple position.
I think you drop in number 5 with the double elbows, which it's it's how you get from sticking hands, the roll, if you like, or into that position. So it's another element to your training.
And number 6 hand block, and you can go, and we also go through the first set, don't we? So you're doing sticky hands, but each time you connect your hands, or at least when the other person attempts to attack you, your hands are already connected. You simply place them in the position of each consecutive hand movement in the set. Now, it doesn't have to be in order. Remember that. You don't have to do anything in an order, because it's bloody sticky hands. So it's not necessarily a set movement, but we're doing it in an organic sense. So we're creating a simple exercise that develops into another exercise, develops into another. They're all the same. Going through the training, you end up with just more and more rules, and then once those rules are established, you start to define those rules, and then you start to take those rules away, so it becomes a free kind of fighting at the end. That's the whole point of our videos for sticky hands. It's just aimed at people who, I found a lot of beginners and high grades in our classes, just when you said, okay, let's do some sticky hands, their faces would drop. And the reason it would drop, their faces would drop, is because they haven't even been able to start connecting those hands together. Then they find it really difficult to train, because they haven't got the patience. You've got to have some patience with it, but you've got to practice on your own as well. So there obviously is an exercise there where you start to practice on your own.
That's in video 1. Don't forget, guys, go down to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our channel. That would be awesome if you could. We really appreciate that. And likewise,
and if you're a UFC guy, or if you're into, you know, grappling or whatever, and you look at the sticky hands, generally not just our sticky hands, but every sticky hand, you go, oh, I could stop that. I could stop there. You know, that's not fighting. Yeah, you're bloody well right. It's not fighting. It's a exercise.
Yeah, I didn't even have to edit that beep in there.
No, you didn't.
How good is
No.
that?
Yeah. It's an exercise. It's meant to be an exercise to develop your feeling, your sensitivity. It's not meant to be a bloody fight. So don't look at it as a fight, and don't try to do it as a fight. Do it as you know, you're two people thinking about the same thing, where you can offer attacks and then defend against offered attacks.
But the key word there, guys, is offered. If you start getting ratty because someone slaps you around the chops, don't think, oh, I want to get it back, I want to get him back, because you'll end up scrapping, and it ends up a mess.
Yeah, you can get some really bad partners sometimes, and you know, if you end up with a partner like that, my only suggestion to you is, okay, you start with a partner. Let's go back to hand block number 1, and he punches you hard in the chest, and you weren't able to defend it. You say to him, okay, that's great. Now you know you can hit me. Let's actually train, right? Because hitting each other, you know, like that is just going to reduce the opportunity to train. I understand when you're a little older. In other words, when you're a bit further into the style, or you're further into your training, of course, hit people as hard as you like, as long as they are prepared to take it, and as long as you are prepared to take it back. Yeah. Okay? Because you can't be a bully. You know, you're going to get hurt. Yeah. Someone will come into that class and don't like the way you're hitting them. They're going to just drop everything and just kick you in the nuts. Simple as that. And where's your training? You know, where's it gone? Yeah. You know, you lose it. No, so I had a guy once. I had a guy once, and doing competition fighting, trying to convince people how to, you know, like keep to rules, stick to rules, and do competition fighting. You know, semi-contact, and you're fighting with them and everything, and they turn around. You turn around. You get a point. You go, well, yeah, back fist to the head. Well done. You know, touch gloves again. You might walk away before you touch gloves. Unfortunately for you, you know, you're not keeping an eye on them, and you know, you think they're great, and you just go, back fist, bang, got you. Turn your back. Guess what? They're on your back, trying to punch you in the back and everything. They're just still trying to hit you. And you go, wait a minute, didn't I just score a point? Aren't we training like scoring first point scores, that kind of thing? Yeah. And you score the point, and then they start whacking you. And this one did that many years ago, I remember. Steve Faulkner's class. Oh, right. And and because I was into it then, I was more into the semi-contact than I was into anything else. And as he... I don't know his name. So he was a nice guy and everything, but sweet guy. But trouble is, he had no idea of what semi-contact rules, you know. Yeah. And this is just gentlemanly behaviour. Yeah. You score the point. He touches your glove, say, well done, that was a good technique, and then you start again, and you're moving around. The first one to score a point, well done. Touch gloves, carry on. You know, that's the way you do it. So there you are. You're throwing you're moving around. I'm doing it now in front of myself. You throw out the punch, back fist, well, bang, that's it, that was a nice one. I turn around all glib and happy, and he says on my back, he's kicking me, and he's punching my back, and I'm going, what the... So the next time I did it, I went back fist, he come behind me, I spun round, do a spinning back sweep. He was heavy, so he didn't go down, but the next week he came, he couldn't train because the whole of his calf was blue.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it was determined. But then I had another situation, you know, later on as you know.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
And same, you know, the guy was doing some self-defense kind of whatever, and, you know, thought he was, you know, good at that, and which is fine, you know, I've got no problem with it. But he didn't, again, understand the concept of... I think he tried to think, well, wait a minute, semi-contact isn't any good because I'm going to be able to attack you after you've hit me. Yeah. And you think, wait a minute, I wouldn't do a back fist, I'd have poked you in the eye or something like that. So maybe you wouldn't be so happy about it. But Anyway, I'm doing semi-contact with him, and straight away he's trying to go, wait a minute, no, that's not right for self-defense. I can still hit you, so I'm going to keep coming at you. So he did. So the next time I did it, instead of just doing a back fist, I kicked his legs from under him as well. And he landed on his back and nearly broke his back. He was screaming.
Yeah, well,
he was screaming. So you don't do that to me.
Well,
you're either going to be, bloody, gentlemanly about a semi-contact fighting, score point, touch gloves, well done. Let's do this. Let's do that. First one to score and all that kind of thing. And no, he just okay. I'm not going to leave you standing next time. And I know that you understand remember, I was at Alex Barrowman's club in Milton Keynes,
right.
And I'd just moved to Milton Keynes with my girlfriend, and I think I was a yellow sash, or I might have been a purple sash or something, and there was this brown sash in the class guy. I'm not going to say his name anyway, but he was obviously the best fighter in that club and everything, and I didn't know anybody, and let's spar, blah blah blah. We sparred, and it was a concrete floor. As it was in those days, and bottom of Bletchley Leisure Centre, and so basically we're fighting, and he does a turning kick, and I thought, that was a damn good kick, that was good technique, good whatever, and I put my hands down like an idiot, going, oh, that was good, but he didn't stop there. The kick went past me. He spun round, did a spinning kick, and caught me right in the shoulder. Right, I was off work for 2 weeks after that. Right, but it didn't. I wasn't aching by that time. I thought, okay, bitch. So we carried on fighting. I swept him 6 times in a row, every time, until the final time he dislocated his shoulder on the concrete floor.
Yeah, wow.
And that's the kind of the training that you would do. It was great fun.
It's not,
but it was more realistic,
But it's not that you want to take the violence out of martial art training. That's the wrong word. It's the ego, if you like.
Yes, it's ego. It's all about ego. When you're training, you're going to train together.
If you want to take advantage of someone, right? So you go back to Hemlock number 1, right? You're a seasoned, practitioner or whatever, but you've got an ego. You see a new beginner. First thing you do is step and whack them right in the chest, right in the sternum. Say, there you go. Now you know what it's about. You should have blocked it. I mean, it's like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Do you not understand that this is you're training people to fight? Whether you're doing semi-contact, which is limited rules for a reason because you're learning to fight. My God, people like that break me. They really do. I hate it. I hate them.
Yeah. You have to get rid of the ego before they start to train, and make them understand there is no ego.
But I think every class needs someone to go and spar with him. Do you know what I mean?
That's what Steve Faulkner used to make us do. We used to have to go to every single club he had. 7 days a week it was, and I used to go to every single club. Me and a guy called Les Evans, and he used to say, that guy, he's a bit of an idiot. I don't mean it. He didn't say it that way. He just says that guy's a bit, he thinks too much of himself. He's hurting everybody. He's being a bit violent. I want you to sort of just show him a little bit of humility, and that's what you would do. And as you know, my forte was sweeping, and I would sweep them over and over again, and they would become humble. And that doesn't make me the greatest fighter, and of course I'm not anywhere near a competition fighter in any shape or form. It was just my forte, and I was able at a club level to work with people. Okay, I fought in the nationals as well, but I was never anything special in nationals, and it's because by the time I got good enough, I was far too much into traditional aspects, and I never wanted to fight in the beginning. It was kind of like forced upon us. So, but it was a great time, and many times that occurred, many times that we had to do these things. But sweeping was my forte, and it was a great fun to do, because it when people end up on the floor in front of you, it's kind of it's great, and that's I guess that's how Tyson liked to feel. And by the way, I'm not likening myself to Tyson in any shape or form, okay? Because you know why? I'm taller than him.
Oh, it's brilliant. Oh, God, oh, my.
Yeah.
Right, going back to hand block number 1. A lot of people, do you know a big problem I see with that? When you've got a really tall person against a really small person, and they can't work out range between each other. So it ends up one either is the short person isn't reaching with the defense, or with the counter punch rather, or the tall person is overreaching. It's just it's.
Well, there's the answers in what we've already discussed.
Yeah.
And like I said, you're consolidating your position. Your hand isn't moving. If they're punching at you, okay, you're moving, but your hand is there. Then it's going to go past your hand that's already there. Okay, all it has to do is rotate, and as it rotates, it will divert that hand. So consequently, your block is already inside his hand, if you understand what I'm saying. And so you're moving back because that's, as you say, the defense aspect. Your stepping back is the defensive aspect, not the block. The block is literally a strike at the arm.
Yeah.
If you look at it that way, and you're rotating your wrist, and your wrist is the first to impact the inside of his forearm, and then as that happens, obviously, if it's going to impact the inside of his forearm, quite obviously his fist has already passed your arm. It's on its way to you, but by rotating your arm, you have now diverted that arm. So it doesn't matter how long his arm is.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. What you've got to do is stop stepping back and then blocking, because if you step back and then block, you're too late.
Understood that. Yeah, understood that. And but a lot of times as well, when people are doing the counter punch, they're not close enough to reach with a punch, and they end up doing, Steve, and we'll because this is number 1's a great one to talk about. What they end up doing is just overreaching or overleaning with that punch.
Again,
hang on a second. You
exactly.
Why would you do that? Just if you have to. Adjust your stance. There's no.
Yes, you can adjust your stance, but again, I go back to what I've just said. You're only consolidating your stance. You're moving naturally backwards, because by stepping your foot into a fighting position, it's going from level with your one leg to behind your one leg. Consequently, your body weight or your posture will move from the center line to slightly off to the right, if it's number 1 hand block, on the right leg. So basically you're consolidating your position, and as you consolidate the position and your left hand is rotating to do the block, and you're looking at that mirror, your other hand is already hitting him because he's coming into it. So you're not literally stepping back, you're consolidating, you're moving with him, right? So that's why I like to say, and people always argue this, you're not moving backwards, they're moving forwards and you're simply moving with them.
Right.
There is no movement between you. You're just maintaining that distance. But having maintained that distance, your arm is staying exactly where it was. And so they are moving their arm past your already position of blocking.
Yeah.
Okay, so all you've got to do is raise your arm to the position of their arm, striking the inside of that arm, which gives you a little bit of ability and timing, because obviously in reality, if you're hitting it hard, they're going to go ouch, their head, their mind's going to stop for a second. Pain tends to freeze everything. So bang, if they can feel it, but of course bearing in mind, if they're drunk or if they're crazy, they may not feel it. So your secondary technique is your fist.
I think we're I love talking about hand block number 1, because you could literally teach a bloody week-long course on it, couldn't you? But do you not think that if Master Yao would be bored enough to listen to us, he probably just went into a karate school, didn't he, and saw them do that and went, oh, I just do this. And here we are talking about it like that. It's obviously it's the concept of kung fu,
but the reason I'm applying number 1 hand block per se is because all the techniques or all the information I've just given can be used for every single hand block.
Let me ask you a question. If number one hand block, right? Because I love the number 1 hand block. The biggest problem with number 1 hand block is, for a kung fu, right, we're blocking on the inside. Why not
Yeah,
block on the outside?
because it's the hardest to do, so you learn it first.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's
People
brilliant.
say, why should I learn this? Because it's bloody hard. I mean, the other one's simple. Just block them in the other way round, wipe them. But yes, you can do that. But then you've got to try to learn the hardest one first, and then you train it longer.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of it, doing it first. But remember what it says. It's about getting the attacker to attack straight.
Yeah, right.
That's how you should look at number one hand block. And I'm talking to the instructors now. That's how you should look at number one hand block.
Yeah.
Learn. The attacker's got to learn how to step straight and use both hands to push, if necessary, to establish a good straight position. Once he's done that, of course, the defender will then start to move backwards, consolidate in his position, I should say. And as he does so, his arm is already in there and his fist is already on the way. He's basically consolidating his position. Both his hands are already going out, and therefore it's a very close proximity technique. It doesn't have to be as long as the tallest guy.
Yeah.
And that's what people tend to do.
Yeah, I mean, there's little things in it as well. Like, I mean, you see people when they're doing the block, for example. So forget the movement now, just what the hand is doing. So they're blocking this punch. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time, you see the other fist all cocked all the way back on their waist, and
but that's again, we have to emphasise that it's beginners have to learn from the beginning.
Listen, absolutely, we emphasise that it's beginners will do something different, but I'm just pointing out things that I see and that I think, well, we could do better than that. So just having understanding the centre, understand the heart, mouth, and whatnot, and yeah, I mean, guys, listen to Mr. Newbie, because he is the only Guardian who ever received a Man of the Year trophy. Did you know that?
In 2003, thank you very much.
In 2003, and I don't think they've ever given out another one. Is that true?
That's because no one's done as much.
Yeah. Hey, Master Poe.
Eat your heart out, you lot.
The wise man walks with his head bowed, grasshopper.
Yeah. The most important, going back to these. Do you
not like talking about your Man of the Year trophy? Because it was huge. It was massive.
I know I've got it here. It's here in Canada. I fill it with Baileys.
Do you? Just glug it down.
No, I'd empty a bottle of it in Baileys. It's just ridiculous. But the reason I'm talking about the hand block in such a way is obviously for the benefit of people who are listening who are not necessarily beginners, because of course now you're going to get a load of beginners going, I don't do it like that, I'll just lift my arm up. Yes, it's your ABC. Remember ABC, learn ABC. You're a child, you're drawing big letters, and that's how you're going to do your hand blocks and your sets and everything. And don't be dismayed by that, you are doing that. I'm really talking to the instructors who maybe are still trying to teach you as a brown sash to do a block in that way. You might say, okay, but that's how Mastier wants to see it. No, Mastier wants to see you use it. It doesn't want to see you do it.
Yes.
Okay, that's really important that people understand that. But I guess he accepts that majority of people are going to just simply do it because they think, well, that's what he wants me to do. That's what he wants to see. No, show him how good you are. Show him how you can, use a technique. Don't just display the package, but show him how to fit the contents together.
Absolutely.
And then he will love you for it.
Another great thing.
But just one thing. Yeah. Don't tell him how to do it.
If not, just say Steve said. You'll love that.
Well, I'm just going to call it a Canadian Lau Gar then.
All right. Oh, okay. I tell you what we did once with me and a guy called Seamus. We created our own two-man form, because I think at the time some other instructors had gone off to a course and they'd done that two-man chin-a form and stuff like that, and I just thought at the time I was like, you know what, get on with it, I can't be bothered, I'm learning, I've got other stuff on my mind. And then I was with Seamus, we were in our gym that we built, and when I say we, it's you and me. we were in the gym that we built, and I remember saying, do you know what, we should make the hand blocks and kick blocks better. We should just put them all together in a huge two-man form.
That's right.
And what we did,
I remember that.
Yeah, and I tell you what, we practiced the hell out of it, and it looked really good. And do you know what we did? We started with the premise, we want to make it look like sticking hands. So basically, you know, we postured forward, each of us connecting at our wrists like in a fighting stance, and we were very close range, you know, stick in hand range if you like. And then from then on, every single attack and defense of the hand blocks up to number 10 and kick blocks we did, and we put them all in, and it was great. And I tell you what, that was a work.
Brilliant. Yeah, that was a work of art as well. It was brilliant. And we've also obviously done, I mean, remember, these things are vehicles for learning, and it's great to have like an Aston Martin rather than Mini. You know. So but, as far as I'm concerned, well, when go on, carry on.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, but what I thought was really the good thing about it was, like I mentioned with Jason Crabtree doing the forms at the Nationals, the really good thing was you were utilising the syllabus, so you're remembering what you're supposed to do for your gradings or whatever, which is great, that's fine, but also you're elevating the level of training and your understanding of it. That was it. So it was useful.
Well, the important thing is, you know, you learn English, okay? You shouldn't end up starting to talk Geordie.
I'd like to speak Welsh, Mr. Nubian.
No, I don't mean it that way. I mean, obviously that was a joke, but it's
no, it wasn't.
People do.
It's an horrible accent.
No, but but people can't. I mean, with total respect to anyone who speaks with a local dialect or it is difficult for the rest of the nation to understand their dialect. I mean, they just laugh at my dialect, my you know, colloquial. Is it colloquial language? If you want a colloquial, they laugh at mine because I'm from Birmingham. But when it comes to other things, you know, the first thing that comes out their mouth is like, what? so and it's not because they're deaf. But no, it's simply that when you learn something, any technique or any martial art or whatever, and we're talking about trying to put together things from the syllabus to learn the syllabus. So we had that two-man form, which was just totally the hand blocks and kick blocks. We've also got a standing form for beginners when they learn number 1, 2, 3. You know. One hand block, two hand block, one kick block, two kick block. You can do the same, obviously, with the 3 and 4. So you're basically in a fighting stance. Step forward, punch. Step back to block and counter. Then that which leaves you a capability of turning to the right with your right foot forward. So you can now do number 2 hand blocks, and so on. I'm not going to describe it all.
But that was a great exercise in just get your guys. If you're listening to this, just think about it in your head. Just make up your own little one-man form, just doing the hand blocks. You know, all number 1 and 2, and how would you do it? There's no right or wrong, but just, you know, it's got to flow. So.
Everybody's too keen to look for external ways of making it look pretty. It's not meant to look pretty, it's meant to work. If you can't make it work, why are you doing Lau? If you can't make your Lau work, so you don't train it, and then you start training something else, I guarantee to you, you are not going to make that something else work. Because if you can't understand Lau, then you can't understand any Kung Fu. So then you start throwing these elaborate forms around in a demonstration, or even in your class or whatever. Start learning forms that you think are more important. No, they're not. All they're doing is extending your opportunity to learn. That in effect reduces your opportunity to learn, extends the time it takes to learn. You just can't learn anything because, you know, I mean, I've had students who just completely, you know, they crap on you. They go off. They learn, then they start going to these different frigging places and start learning these new forms and think it's going to make them look pretty, think it's going to make them good. They can't even put together their own style, and then they can turn around and say, well, this has always been my style, and it's blatantly obvious it isn't. You know, history, and for one thing, but also, of course, the way that they're doing it. I watched someone doing it the other day who apparently is, some master of some kind, and because he's joined, with Lau Gar, he performed his form for Lau Gar. And
it was Tiger Crane, I think.
No.
Wasn't it? Wasn't it?
No, I haven't got a clue what the bloody hell it was.
It was the one where you go, ha 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 ha.
Well, anyway.
It was. You have to make funny noises.
Yeah, well, I'm not worried about. I'm not concerned about the style. I'm not, dissing the style. I'm just simply saying the guy is there have to learn new things, and of course now he's back to the beginning again. He looks crap, right? I mean, and there he is with students who he's sort of talked into joining his organisation, and then they're going, well, my master is this and my master is that. Unfortunately, mate, your master lives in China and you ain't going to get no lessons. So go forth and multiply. You basically have someone who may come over for a few quid. He'll come over, give you a few days training, go back to his own life, and you call him your master. And I just never understand. I am bitching again, aren't I?
Yeah, it's almost.
You know what?
It's almost as ludicrous as paying £1 for Dimac Secrets, isn't it? Hey?
Yeah. Well, it's one and the same person.
I know,
but I'm not saying anything. It's just ridiculous the way that you see these things happen.
I know, it's great.
But it isn't just them. It's like there's thousands of people do it.
Absolutely.
You can. But, we are tarred with these. The things that have happened to our association, and the sadness of losing people who showed promise and then have just completely gone off the rails. And then, but other people have got exactly the same situation. And as I say, the Mastier sent me an email the other day, like I told you, and he says, as far as Lau, I said, Lau is always going to be, my heart, whatever. And he's going, really thank you for that. And I'm sure he's seen so many people, that have completely destroyed his faith in humanity. That you can understand how people and some instructors get, and they do lose it. They do get, really. They can appear to be selfish. They can appear to be angry. And it's because they can see things coming often, and it's so sad. But what we want is to build on what we know is an amazing style. We don't need to compete with anyone on their turf. We don't really care about competing with anyone. Of course, we've got fighters who will go and do that, but that why? Going back to the earlier point, why try to take a traditional self-defense art and apply it, into a situation where you're not training for it, you're not interested in that? It's taking away every option you have by applying rules. And if you want to apply rules and go and fight in it, that's absolutely great. Make sure you're fit, make sure you're prepared, make sure you're trained, but not just because you're trying to prove your style. If you prove your style works, you first have to be able to take that style to that arena. And if that arena says, oh, wait a minute, you're not allowed to do this, you're not allowed to do that, you can't do that, you can't do that, oh, all right then, you've just lost your style. You've just lost the opportunity.
But this is why semi-contact as a base level competition thing is just a wonderful sport. And,
absolutely.
But people will argue, oh yeah, but it's just people doing cartwheels and Superman punches now. But it's like, yeah, there's that, but just it puts everyone on a base level.
Have they watched Taekwondo?
yeah. Oh Jesus, yeah. But
the Olympics.
Oh, for Christ's sake! When they're like 5 inches from each other and they're trying to kick each other in the head. Yeah. But
you know what I say, don't you? I mean, no disrespect, but people say to me, okay, you talk about Taekwondo, describe Taekwondo, and I say, well, it's like Irish dancing with attitude.
Oh Jesus!
And I don't mean that in personal disrespect.
Yeah,
I just.
no, but it's sad. It's sad
Yeah.
because you know, and I've spoken to some of them, and as technical as they'll ever get, is I move the hand across the body, so I'm blocking everything, and I'm just like, is that your interpretation of what you do? It's very, but like we always say, it's not that we're being bitchy about other styles. It's just the illogic in people's thinking about martial arts.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah.
Where's the logic in in being wanting to kick someone in the head when you can just back fist them faster? I mean, I don't get that. Like, I just don't get it. And that's just a competition thing. But
in defence of people, any other style, I mean, I'm sure there are people in that style that are agreeing with us and going, for God's sake, let's try and get our style back to how it used to be, or how it was meant to be. That as an example.
Have you ever watched the Ginger Ninja Trickster on YouTube? He's Taekwondo. No. I love him. I think he's great. Yeah. He's a Welsh lad. He's great. He's brilliant.
Well, Scott Adkins was Taekwondo.
Was he? Yeah. Well, great kicks. Brilliant. But I'm not sure about him as a fighter, though. I mean, for Christ's sake.
Well, I don't know. He's got some great moves and he's pretty fast.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him in a competition.
I've never seen him in a competition, Steve. So I'm just saying, like, know, and you know what it's like. You can look the greatest on film or whatever, and
I know it's all timed and everything. I understand that.
But hey, I'm not saying that it doesn't have a hell of a lot of skill to be able to do all the timing on the films. Not at all. I think respect to the guy. Love him.
No, I think originally the people who literally were good martial artists became movie stars. I'm not suggesting that they're not good martial artists. I mean, Jackie Chan's a good example, and all the other guys as well, and Sammo Hung and all that.
But you've got to realise with those, Steve, and I'm not meaning to tell you, but you've got to understand the difference. When they were being brought up through the Peking opera, the three of them, because you had Jackie Chan, Sammo Hung and Yuen Biao, they called them the three brothers, didn't they? When those three were going through, my God, that was a rough period. That was rough. They were scrapping, they were fight, and it was hard training. So I can well believe that amongst the plethora of different styles and to a point wushu that they learned, there is some fighting skill there, and for me to justify that, just look at Jackie Chan's films when he's choreographing fight scenes and whatnot. You look at what he's trying to say. I mean, I'm not talking about the early stuff with his films. I'm talking about like the mid '80s onwards when he took a sort of speed and attitude vibe to his fighting. It came across as almost like looked like
more the Western movies. You mean?
Yeah, it came across like that. I'm talking about like he was still doing the Hong Kong movies, but the fighting style had changed from wire work and slow. Like you'd do a punch and then you'd pose and then. And then sort of mid '80s when he started, when the kickboxing craze sort of crept into films, you had Benny Urquidez doing stuff, and that's when the fighting looked more dynamic, and there was timing, there was distance, and it just looked.
And Jet
Li, I love Jet Li, but again, that's wushu then. But amazing,
but
skill.
very fast, very skilled. Love it, absolutely love it. And you see these, but you also see, you see people who have developed their name through the martial arts without a great deal of martial arts prowess, if you like, and it is unfortunate, but that's the way it is, But we're bitching again. No, we're not. We're just simply saying the same. I'm giving an opinion of how I see, martial arts in films. If you like, there are so many diversions and bastardizing of martial arts in films that Christ culminating Karate Kid, and I don't mean Jackie Chan's Karate Kid, I mean the first Karate Kids. They were just
nice
and David Carradine in Kung Fu, when they
Christ,
I think they'd reached their low ebb then, didn't they, when they got to that point.
The biggest mistake they did was not hire Bruce Lee for that.
No, they should have hired. Bruce Lee wrote it.
Oh yeah. That would have been something special, That really would have been.
He actually said in an interview, "We're just talking blah blah blah." But then, even in that interview, he said, "I'm not sure if they're going to have me because there is prejudice. I'm a Chinese guy in the Western world, and And he goes, "Oh, I understand that." He accepted it, but I bet he would have pissed him right off.
Oh well, absolutely. absolutely. You know,
But he probably made money from the writing of it. But you know, the writers always make a few quid.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Right, I want to talk about the sixth set in Lau Gar.
So we're coming back to Lau Gar, thank God.
Yeah, you know, because you know we do have a reputation.
Up until that point, well, we don't even know what we're talking about. So we're just passing the time.
Oh, just chew the fat. But you know, hey, we can't get kicked off our own podcast for talking about Lau Gar, Steve. So.
Oh, okay. We just get kicked off everywhere else.
Honest to God.
Jesus. Always answer us with a video. Show us what you can do and why you're doing it. And if you can do that, then more power to you.
Oh, hell yeah.
If you, but like where you get trolls and they just go, "Ooh, that's crap" or whatever. Show me why you think it's crap. Give me a reason why what I'm saying doesn't work, and that's all I need to know.
Yeah. Because
it would help me to improve, and therefore help all my students. Because I'm going to say I got that from Fred, right? But if they don't give me that, then all they're doing is filling their faces with shit. Then they're just talking bull, unless they can actually back it up with showing me what they're doing. Right? Because I'll show them what I'm doing, albeit I'm not going to be able to go down and get up again in Phalanchi, or fuck you rather. But I'm sure I could talk them under the table.
Oh, cool, Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, anyway, that's just for all those hitmen out there.
Yeah. With bald heads and red ties. Whoop.
Yeah.
Right.
So, Lau Gar Look Up Kune.
Lau Gar Look Up Kune. What's it mean?
It's a fist of, or the style of six coordinations, or the form of six coordination. Call it what you want.
Yeah.
Kune just means fist.
Yeah.
So but fist represents style.
Yeah. Lau Gar Kune. What are the six coordinations, old man?
Yeah, people misunderstand this because they listen and or their teacher says fist of six coordinations, and they go, oh, all right, okay, fist of six coordinations. Okay, so you have 3 internal, 3 external. If you want to repeat that bloody concept of internal and external, but in this case, I guess it works because the 3 external is obviously your arms, your body or trunk, and your legs. That's the external. Yeah. And then the internal would be your eyes, your breath, and your spirit or attitude, if you like. Okay. So you've got to combine all those 6 what do you call them, coordination, if you want. You've got to combine all those. So let's say you're doing a punch, a step and a punch, just basically step and a punch. Your feet need to be coordinated, obviously, with your hips and your body, your trunk, and of course your fist needs to be coordinated with those 2 things at the same time. As you're throwing that technique, you need to be looking exactly where the punch is going. You need to be able to breathe in to exhale in, if you like, as you're throwing that punch, and you need to have the attitude and the spirit that's going to make that punch connect. You really have to be in the moment when you're throwing that punch, and that's all that means, 6 coordinations. Okay, so once you apply that to any form, not just this one, and any movement you make, then you will always do it the best you can.
I've heard somebody somewhere say, oh, the 6 coordinations, I'll tell you what they are. It's your wrist, your elbow, and your shoulder, your ankle, your knee, and your hips. I'm like, what?
Well, that's not 3 internal and 3 external,
no,
is it?
Not.
So
no, but there's some people, I've seen that on. Someone said that on YouTube somewhere, and I also read it on one of the forums. I'm like, no, it's not.
Okay, well, in that case, let them. It's okay. They just
No,
6
just
external
saying,
coordinations. That's fine. You can call those. You can say those are if they could be or may necessarily be coordinated. But if you're doing a punch, you ain't got a wrist. Yeah. Okay, so therefore it doesn't apply with every technique. Whereas the things I've just said do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
They apply to every single technique.
Let me ask you a question, because shut up. Let me ask you a question, old man. Let me ask you a question. In this set, okay, when we talk about the internal coordinations, the eyes are one of them. Now, in this set, we're looking all the way around with our eyes to the left-hand side, right?
Yeah.
Why is that? And you know, at the start when we're pressing down with the two palms or whatever, we're consciously looking around and looking in the left-hand corner of our eye. Why is that?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really. I didn't really, follow the sort of, I don't know, the message there or the concept of there, but I can say to you what I do know, and that is when you turn to your left and look directly with your left, it's kind of an exercise for your eyes, if you like. People can try this at home. If they turn their head totally to the left with their chin over their shoulder and then look with their eyes as far behind them as they possibly can, they'll feel a slight strain in the right hand eye, to the right hand side of that eye. But when they turn to the right and they look to the right completely behind them, they don't get the same strain in their left eye. And Master Yao used to say, well, that's, you get that because you're right-handed, and if you turn the other way, you're left-handed, you get it that way. Well, I'm not sure about that, but certainly I feel that slight tenseness in the eye of the right-hand side of the right eye when you're turning, looking to the left. So it's basically like an exercise, an internal exercise, if you want, for the eyes and so on.
Because I found, I said to you, a while back, I really feel it. And you said, do you feel it on the right side? I said, no, I don't feel it on the right side. I can look all day, but when I do it on the left, you really feel a strain. It's odd. Yeah. That's really peculiar, that.
Yeah, that's just an interesting fact. I'm not... there's no martial application to it. Well, there is, because if you're looking behind you can see someone coming.
There you go. See, viewers, you get your money's worth with us. Eh? You're looking behind you. Didn't you know that, eh? Brilliant. Yeah. So, looking at the start of this form,
it's an ancient exercise to be fair.
Yeah. Okay. So after we press down with the palms, and there's an interesting point, because I kind of skipped it over on John Gusau as well back when we were looking at the second set, but we're kind of pressing down with the palms. Now, is it right that it's generally left hand on top of right as we press down, or is it gender specific as well? Not that it matters. It's gender specific, but most people will do it with the right hand underneath. Simply, that's just the way they've been taught, and they'll do it. Very, very few instructors will say, "Oh, but you're a female, so you must do it the other way around," because according to the concept of chi or internal energy or whatever, it flows the opposite way for women. Okay, that's the message really that I get, from what I've learned in terms of Tai Chi, that sort of thing. But whether there's any kind of evidence for that, Tai Chi people will obviously let you know about that, because I'm not a Tai Chi person per se. Yes, I practice Tai Chi, but only for health. I don't tend to follow it. I've got a style already. Yeah. Oh, hell yeah. When you're pressing with the palms on top of each other, am I right in saying there's a channel or something through the middle of your palm that you've got to line up or something? Did I remember reading that or being told that by John Russell at some point?
I've no idea, but yes, you can do that, and that's called Lau Gar. Nothing to do with style, it's just called Lau Gar, and it's basically the center of your palm.
Yeah.
If you press into the center of your palm or into the back of your palm, back of your hand in the center, you'll feel a slight plane. That's a meridian.
Yes.
One of those points, if you like.
Yeah, but
and you can line those up. Traditionally.
When you're sitting down meditating, you line up those Lau Gar points in your hand with your Dan Tien, which is sort of below your
depending
belly,
on your style. Yeah, depending on your style of meditation.
This is where I told you I was walking in the Sahara Desert. So if you line them up properly, people, you'll be transported. It's like Stargate. It's brilliant.
Really? Was the sand coming out your palm?
Oh, it was amazing. Da, da, da. I was like Omar Sharif. Right, anyway. Next thing, you're stepping into pots. Explain what that is.
Yeah, well, that's a description of the
movement.
Just explain. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, I got
No, that's fine. It's just a description of the movement. You're moving into a horse riding stance, basically, in a much quicker way than or a different way than twisting the feet out.
Yeah.
Toes, heels, toes. Position. Yeah. And so you're just basically sitting in. They call it to step into the pots, or sitting in pots, or standing in pots, and it's just placing your feet in a powerful position, and then just making a horse stance, a low horse stance.
Yeah. Is it? I mean, traditionally though, when you go into a horse stance, it's supposed to be done in sort of 3 movements of the feet. Is that right?
Well, 3 and then squaring off.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a bit of a complicated arm and twist and rotation.
Yeah. Again, yeah. Are you talking about the next move, or?
Yeah, but I was gonna. Do you want to talk about that, or do you want to just skip on to the next one?
We can skip it, because basically, again, you can say this is a kind of qigong type of exercise. But you remember a few podcasts ago, I suggested that I don't like saying everything's an exercise. Okay, except where you just really have to, where there is no purpose for it, like looking behind you with the eyes, for instance. You're not going to headbutt anyone with your nose as you spin round, so but when you draw, I sometimes explain to people that possibly when you draw your arms up, if someone's got hold of your arms, and I'm not suggesting this is necessarily true, I'm just saying let's look for ways of using something. So if I was to push my arms out to the side, obviously at speed rather than the speed that you do it in the set, push them out sideways, and someone was holding them, then obviously the further out my arms go, the closer that person comes to me.
So let me just explain. There's someone in front of you, for example, they're grabbing both of your wrists with both of their hands, so it's square on. And when you move your arms, your wrists out to the side, you're in effect.
So you pull them in, push them out sideways, and as you push them out sideways at speed, they will come close to you, even if they're still holding your arms. Well, of course, their arms are outstretched now, they're weak, so now you just simply pull them back in and then push in front of you. So literally they are there now, they're right in front of you. So I'm not suggesting, try it. What have you got to lose, as Donald Trump says about that drug that can poison you.
For God's sake.
Yeah.
Talking.
Yeah. But sorry, I was going to say what that does. It doesn't necessarily follow that you might agree with how it works, but to do it in that way gives you a result. In other words, it gives you a purpose, as opposed to just breathe out, breathe in, push out. It's like bang, bang, bang kind of method, and it kind of makes you, gives you a little vigor or vinegar, as I like to say.
I think we should sort of press on now, because trying to explain all that within the realm of radio speak is a bit tough.
Absolutely.
So with it, the next block in it, and if you know the set, you'll be following us no problem. You do what would be considered a transfer block, wouldn't you? You'd be and then punching underneath and with a high block. Why would you consider? What's a transfer block, Steve?
It's just changing from one hand to the other. It's blocking with one hand and then lifting it with the other. If it's for a specific target,
right?
This being under the armpit.
Yeah.
Okay, so basically what you're doing, just briefly, is you're rotating the left hand. Remember, we talked previously about how the left palm would be, the palm itself would be bent right back as far as it could, so it looks like you're carrying the ceiling, like you're pushing against the ceiling, but with the foot, the hand this time pointing away from you or outwards, and that allows you to block with the forearm. And as you block with the forearm, your other hand is coming on the outside of it, it's picking it up, and or rather the inside, I should say, it's picking it up from there. With a normal or a tansao, or what you want to call it, and from there you've transferred the arm to that tansao. Then you raise your arm for the left arm again, and now you can punch directly into the underneath the armpit. So basically you are literally transferring from one block to the next block to the next block, and it does work pretty fast actually. It does give you this beautiful target.
Yeah, it's very. It is a very. You have to do it fast, I think.
Yeah, you got to learn to do it
bam,
fluidly.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, because I kind of interpret that as well, or as I can turn that into an arm lock or a drag down, if you like. But I was going to ask you about this. Now in the form, you're upright when you do it. You're standing up. But if I'm, if you imagine, instead of separating the arm sleeve and punching under, I'm using that left hand to drag back, and the fist now is pulling the arm back. But you see, I have to bend forward doing it. Now, in my mind, I think that's fine. That's legitimate. I'm just using those techniques, but instead of being stood upright, I can actually just bend it down, use a different.
But remember, you're on one
orientation.
leg. You're on one leg, remember?
Well, I wasn't when I did this, but because I was separating the hands from the leg. I was
okay.
looking at the techniques slightly outside the form.
Outside the box.
Outside the box. But again, I mean, that's fine to do, though, right? Because
yeah. Yeah, but don't change the form.
No, not changing the form
per se. Just simply practice it from lots of different angles.
Yeah.
But all roads lead to Rome. So you've got to bring everything comes back to the original form. You can interpret it in lots of different ways as long as the form pretty much stays the same.
Yeah, but
and I don't mean. Sorry, I was going to say whether you do a flat fist or whether you do a knuckle, single knuckle fist, that's not changing the form. Changing the form is where you completely derive a new way of doing something, which is totally alien to what was meant to be there.
Yeah, but at the same, yes, yeah. But you're going way off base with the techniques.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's right.
I mean, if you said when you said, "Oh, well, you got one leg on," you're raising one leg up. That's not pertinent to how I wanted to use it. It doesn't mean you can't use it if both legs are on the ground.
No, you can't. It's not a case of that. No, it's just
Yeah.
The leg is being lifted for a reason. Protection or whatever.
Yeah,
so.
sure. Yeah, no, I just.
Or preparation for the next step, which of course is a step, and you're raising the hand, you're punching into the armpit.
Sure. Next move, we do we grasp. You can interpret it as grasping the head, and pulling it into
immediately you've done the punch and your arm is up high. You're then going to rotate that palm to the back of someone's head, if you can imagine that, and then you pull that head into the elbow. So you're basically crushing the head, not literally, but you're pinching the head, if you want, between the palm and your foot and your elbow.
So a point I want to ask you to elaborate on is, we always talk about when we discuss, say, we're looking at yoke punches or whatever like that, and the two opposing forces.
Yeah.
If I'm smacking someone's head into my elbow, I'm not. I'm pushing one into the elbow. I'm not just holding the hand there and have the elbow meet, if you know what I mean. Does that make sense? Does that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no need to hold it. You want to pull him. You want to keep him. You want to make sure you've got control of his posture or his balance as much as possible. And if you can, I mean, don't forget, you may not just grab the back of the head. You may be able to grab the side of the head and completely change the angle of the head. So you're bending his head. Once his head bends, he loses perception of his own balance. Yeah. So he may be disorientated for that period while you're hitting it. And of course you can target the jaw, you can target the face, eye socket, ear hole, whatever you want to target. And to do that, you can manipulate the back of the head to accomplish that.
Yeah. No, that's good. It makes a really good arm lock as well, that. But
yeah, you can do it in that way too.
So then, it's trying to figure out what's the best sort of techniques to talk about here.
Well, a little point of the next move. Obviously, you're going into a fighting position as you kick. When you kick, you're not going to have any distance or space between your palm, your right palm, and your right kick. So consequently, you tend to slap your leg, and all that is an indication that there's no gap between. If you leave the arm up and the kick goes underneath, the space between to hit your body is open, and that all it's doing is just portraying to the training, if in effect, that you've got no gaps, so you're trying to cover the gap.
We talked about Fei Lung Chi last week, and at the opening of Fei Lung Chi, when you're brushing, you think of it like brushing the leg. You brush the leg, then come up, and then spear hand underneath in Fei Lung Chi. But you're brushing the leg in this, aren't you, when you do that 90-degree turn?
Yeah.
But like you said, it's to illustrate, and then the other hand is covering no space or no gaps.
No space. Yeah.
No, it's interesting. Then we have we outstretch into a very sort of, we're in almost a horse riding stance.
Yeah.
With an outstretched left hand.
Yeah.
But then we kind of twist our whole stance, or twist the right heel off the ground.
Yeah, you're not necessarily in a horse riding stance. The one leg is going to.
I do
You're
apologise.
kicking. Yeah, one leg is going to land in front of you, isn't it? Because you're kicking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you kick, the foot will land in front of you. So when you turn to the side,
Yeah, but
you may
step in as well.
Yeah. No, well, you'll step out with the left.
Yeah, step
if
out
you
with
want,
the left.
but not necessarily that in front of you.
Okay.
You'll step out to the left, to the side.
Okay, all right.
Right, because then it becomes a T-step.
Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Because people can interpret this in either. Some of them do prefer to kick and then land in a horse stance and then turn to the left. But of course, when you turn to the left, now you have the weakness is there on your left. So the best way, or my preference, I should say, is I kick, I land to the front, and then I'm going to turn to face with everything. In other words, I'm in a fighting stance, and then I, basically a sort of a back stance, and then a forward stance when you punch, then a back stance when you're back again, with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, that's it.
Stance.
He's trying to think of what I do.
Yeah. I know it's
in
difficult,
your head,
isn't it?
and I'm trying to do. I'm
That's
doing
why
it
you can
on the
see.
floor. I'm going,
that's
what
why my
am I
mic
doing?
is going all over the place. I'm trying to do it sitting down, and there I am.
So, right,
Yeah.
No,
The
of
other
course it
bit,
is,
yeah.
you're stepping out,
Yeah. So the next movement, we're rotating our hand towards the little finger. We've got to do that in order to, to block. If we do it the other way around, then the punch is going to come through us.
Yeah.
So if we imagine he's punching, we're all grabbing, we can rotate towards the little finger, raise up. And then another thing that people often make a mistake of is you do have to take that foot kind of a hanging step, but across a diagonal, because if you don't, when you come to hit the side of the head, which is what the knuckle is for now, you'll be hitting with your little knuckle instead of the actual dragon knuckle, or whatever you want to call it.
Phoenix Eye.
Dragon's fin. No, is it Phoenix Eye?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah, dragon is the centre one. Yeah, sorry, or whatever.
But yeah, so it's about twisting that stance, so you're actually striking. If you imagine, well, you a lot of people interpret that as a temple strike, wouldn't they? Sort of.
Yes, it is.
around
Yeah,
the,
it's literally for a temple strike.
But if your stance isn't twisted enough, if you imagine, you will end up hitting with your little finger instead of the index knuckle. So
that's right. But also, of course, you can help yourself by rotating your arm that you've blocked up with, just simply taking the arm to the other guy's just above his elbow, if you want, and literally, because that's where you'd be blocking him. You block him with the wrist, but then your palm is available, extra length, which will go above his elbow, push his elbow, in other words, push him to the side slightly, and now you have the target.
Oh, I tell you what, talking about sets, just like, bloody hell, it's hard work, isn't it? You're trying to
it's hard to talk about it. But I think all the listener has to do is kind of listen to it, go, what am I doing when I do that move? And he's listening to our description of what I might be doing with that move, and it may be different, it may be similar, or it may be something that they would like to do. It's really up to them. Obviously we can't cover every single move of the set. We'd be here forever, but it's little bits like that. There are, I think the we're going to jump, I think is probably best because time constraints.
Sure.
I'm going to describe the back fist when we've done the second transference block. And talk about the transference block as well. That second transference block is, people tend to do it on a longer stance. The reason they do it on a longer stance is because they're taught usually that the punch is a lower punch. Okay?
So can I just, I know what you're saying, can I just be really clear for the people at home, right? So we're talking about the second transfer block where you've done all your double pressing palms, okay? Now you're up on one leg again, and then you're going to land with the left leg and you're going to punch. Forward. Now, what you're saying is most people overstep with this. They make a very long stance.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to dispute their stance, because it's fine to overstep like that, to make it a long step, a forward step if you want. But what I am discussing with them is to give them a little bit of maybe food for thought. Is I want you to imagine that as you do that transference of block and you are going long, most people go long because the punch is meant to be a lower punch. It's meant to go diagonally down, right? Or lower, shall we say. Now, because they're in a lower stance, it doesn't go diagonally down, because they go, yeah, but I'm not actually punching straight then, I'm punching downwards. And so their justification is, if I go long stance, I'm going to be punching straight, so my punch will still be powerful. But my argument is, it's not meant to be the same kind of punch. It's meant to be a wrap across the muscles. So what's happening is you're literally hitting the body and scraping that punch down. It's meant to change the shape of the attacker. So basically, obviously, notwithstanding he's got a bloody big leather coat on, which is not going to make the technique work. But if he's got a t-shirt on or that sort of thing, what you're trying to do is hit the body in the sort of the higher abs, and then rub their abs with a punch, literally scraping the punch with power down the abdominal muscles. And what that does is it forces him to bend forward, because it's very, very painful when you come to the lower abs. It's basically you're stuffing your knuckles into those lower abs.
You said you used the word you're punching diagonally down earlier on, which is pretty apt, because you know, if you're punching
that's what you're doing.
If you're punching straight, you're punching into the muscles. If you imagine
that's right, and that's why I says people actually try to make a long step to justify the punch to become straight. You don't need to make a long step if the intention is to scrape down the muscles and turn the body to rotate, to force him to sort of curve his stomach inwards as you're pressing into his lower abdominal muscles with the punch. It's meant to be a scrape down the ribs, and it's bloody painful.
Oh, if you do
muscles aren't necessarily meant to be treated like that. They you know, if you punch someone into the stomach and they've got good abs, they're going to take it. But if you scrape down into those abs and you're twisting each ab as you go down the stomach, that's extremely painful.
It's separating the muscles. So that's one of the principles of Qigong. Not that it's, well, you know, but you can interpret it as, but you are separating the muscles. So it's similar to if you're grabbing a bicep or whatever, you're separating that muscle. Same thing there. You're punching down to separate them, and it does hurt. If you're at home listening to this, just do it. Just tense your stomach and rub with your knuckles, the sharp knuckles on your fist. Just rub down really hard and see what we mean, because it does hurt.
And so we're moving straight into the back fist, and this is another contention that I love, because you know, a lot of people do competition fighting when they're training Lau, or they're encouraged to do something. The next move they do is they turn around and they do a back fist. Well, they do a back fist exactly the same as they would do in a competition. My contention is that you don't need to do that. What my contention, the way I tend to do it, and obviously people have their own way, but I'm not changing the technique, I'm not changing the style, I'm not changing the format, I'm not changing the order. I'm simply doing the back fist in a way that is more contentious than perhaps just a back fist from a competition. And the way that I do it is, as I turn, I've just done that low punch, there's a guy behind me, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to swing that punch like a a best way to describe it, I guess, like a choily foot kind of fist, like a big, long, swinging fist, and it's a back fist, big, long, swinging back fist, as long as I possibly can. Now, the reason I do that, and as fast as I do that, it will then pass the target, or obviously it's going to hit the target if that's the target point, but as it passes, it's throwing your left leg forward, so you're on your right leg. As you step behind you, you're on your right leg. You spin your right fist all the way as a back fist, but with a long arm, and swing it right back to your waist, if you like, or just beyond your waist, and that will bring your left punch straight into play in a left stance, and straight into your 3 moves, and then back into the bow and arrow.
So, just to make the point again. You basically, guys, you're using the momentum of the right hand, throwing that swinging back fist. You're using that momentum, and you're not stopping it in the form to carry that left leg for the step through. But then once you go past the apex, if you like, of that punch, then just pull it back into the hip, and you'll notice your whole body wants to be motivated.
You don't even have to do that. You can just swing it. It's just the motivation,
the motivation of the
momentum,
whole body.
we should say.
Wants to step into it. So instead of doing a back fist, then step and punch, you're going back fist punch at the same time. And it's one beautiful,
move,
powerful, fluid movement.
And the target is slightly different, because instead of doing a back fist to the side of the head as you would do in a competition, you're literally swinging that arm around and down, so you're hitting the neck where it reaches the shoulder, the ear, the jaw, all that kind of thing. That's what you're aiming for with your forearm or your fist. So it becomes a much more powerful blow as a back fist. Okay, and it is more like I say, like a choily foot kind of move.
It's a big movement, isn't it? So
it is Lau.
Movement for Lau.
It is. Yeah, well, there are many powerful
I understand
movements in
when
Lau.
we look at on the surface.
I think the problem is people have become so immersed in competition style of movements as back fists that they kind of portray a back fist just simply as a flicking of the fist. But what you've got to consider is the back fist will be used in that way, and it will be used in the opposite direction as well, and which we call a yoke punch. So all this is the opposite to a yoke punch.
No, the opposite to a back fist, isn't it? A spinning punch, a fing chong.
I know what you're saying, but this is coming diagonal.
Right, all right,
And because it's coming diagonal, the yoke punch will come upwards. And remember, the yoke punch can all be in Bokpa, and it's done double. And that's still people say, well, that's not a yoke punch. Well, it is. It's exactly the same mechanics. And that's the thing that people misunderstand. Remember that every set reveals the same moves done for a different reason in a different way to a different target. And if people understood that, they wouldn't go, oh, I've got to learn all these sets. They'd go, I've got to learn all these ways of doing the same techniques, the same moves. And it becomes much easier to understand the style then when you start to interpret. It's like learning certain words and going, wait a minute, I could use this word for that, and that word for that, and that word for that, and they all mean the same thing.
It's like a thesaurus, not a dictionary.
That's it. That's a good way of putting it. So we're swinging that, and then we go straight into that big punch, and then the reverse punch, and then the bow and arrow step, the stance, I should say.
Okay, so we can talk about very briefly, because in this set, you notice there's a bit of repetition in it. So towards the start of it, you're repeating 2 sort of outside palm up blocks, and then later on you're repeating 2. Is it 2 or is it 3? 3. There you go. 3 pressing
palm
block.
And
then you've got this middle section where you're repeating the movements again. So if we just go straight from the press down with the hands, and well, a lot of people interpret this as a kick, but you can interpret this as a knee. Why is that?
Yeah. When you're rotating your arm round and trapping the arm and raising your knee up, because there's no arm in that. No arm in it.
No arm in it to do.
Yeah. I mean, also, of course, if he's got your arm, and you're rotating your arm around, then you turn his arm upside down, so the elbow is now underneath, and if the elbow is now underneath, it becomes a prime target for your knee or your shin.
Yeah.
So you're not kicking at the elbow per se, you're kicking or kneeing just above the elbow.
Yeah.
So basically overextending his arm. So if he's got you, you've got him.
Yeah.
And of course his arm is underneath your arm, underneath your fist, so consequently it's going to be trapped and it's going to be overextended. Also, of course, you can use it as a release at the same time, so you can literally be smacking your own hand to release it out of his grip. But you know, at the same time, of course, you can just be you can be super I know, you can be reinforcing that fist, which is still being held by the arm, to ensure that it doesn't, you don't kick it up into your own face. So that's basically another reason for doing that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I like the interpretation you gave to me about. So instead of thinking of the leg as a kick, you think of it as a knee. But if you look at, when we talk about how we utilize knees in Kung Fu, as opposed to when you look at knees done in other styles, which are, so you're pushing down with the arms, but at the same time you're raising up with the knee, and that knee is coming directly upwards, not forwards and out. So go on.
I was going to say, me personally, I think it works better with the shin, but you've got to be sure to be hitting the arm, and remember that with the shin you can reach the opposite arm, the furthest arm. So if he's grabbed you with his left hand, for instance, then of course you can then trap that left arm and do it.
Absolutely. The point I wanted you to sort of steer on towards, though, was about how we generate power using the knees.
Oh yeah, well, it's a good example. Is number 10 kick block. A lot of people tend to they spin the guy around, then they try to reach with their knee like on back.
Yeah,
is that his
from
name?
The other village. Yeah, flew in from the other village, to deliver a knee. It was awesome.
Yeah, that's right. So trying to throw your knee forwards is not as powerful as pulling the person down, because remember, you've got your hands on his shoulder now, right? You've already hit him in the back, so he's arched in the number 10 kick block. So basically you now go from hitting him in the back of the spine, so he's arching, to the shoulder hold, pull down on the shoulders, arch his back furthermore, and raise your knee to the arched back, and so consequently it's a vertical knee and a vertical drop of his shoulders, so that you're coming in a vertical situation and not in a horizontal situation,
not out.
Which makes it far more powerful, because you're pulling him onto the knee, and of course the knee is far stronger when it's coming directly upwards. And that's that's how we would use that knee.
But you can interpret that movement in Lau Gar Kun.
Yeah, you
or
can
at least understand how you create the power by you're pressing down with the hands, but also bringing the knee up, vertically. So you've got more power rather than if you are interpreting it as a knee. So anyway, we'll press on. We've got 3 palm. What's the word I'm looking for here now, Steve? Not 3. We've got 2 and.
And then the back of the palm and forward. I know what you mean. Yeah,
I don't know how to explain that. How do you explain that? Anyway, it repeats itself.
Yeah. So it's just basically a palm. Yeah, palm block and punch 3 times. Yeah, and those are simply repeated because they if you think about it again, like we just said, that the sets are repeating themselves. The techniques are getting better. All you're doing is number 1 hand block. All you're doing is the first block, or rather second block. The beauty looks in the mirror, but you're doing it in a much more confined or compact way, and because it's confined or compact, you need to repeat it in order to get better at it. So you're now taking a much bigger hand block from the first set, and now interpreting it in a much smaller dynamic. So it makes it a lot more fast, obviously, and then of course immediately you're then going to rotate your hand, the back of the hand, and then immediately rotate it again for the palm. Now I've got to elaborate on that, haven't I? Because there is so much controversy here. When you're doing the back of the hand as in the first set, you do the back of the hand in a much bigger way again, and then you're reinterpreting it in this sixth set. So you're going back of the hand with your right hand. Now, often people will now raise that wrist, bend that wrist away from the target that they've just hit with the palm, with the back of the fingers rather, and then try to then do a palm strike. Well, that means you're taking the technique off and away and backwards away from the target. So that's something you must not ever do. So basically you're doing the back of the hand. Immediately you've done the back of the hand, because it's flat, you're going to rotate it sideways, which now energizes the edge of the hand. So you're literally doing back of the hand fingers, stroke fingers, and twist palm, for small finger palm.
For everybody listening at home, so we've just done the three punches and we're on the back of the fist, right? Back of the hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now if you imagine, just a mental picture for everybody at home, if you imagine the tips of your fingers are touching the chest of your opponent, right?
Yeah.
You're never ever breaking breaking away the connection with your fingers to that person. So you think if you pull your wrist back and cock it, create power, you've broken it. So what Steve's saying is rotate the hand anti-clockwise, or is it anti-clockwise? Yeah, rotate.
It depends on whether you're looking up or down.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, rotate the hand anti-clockwise whilst keeping the fingers connected, and that's how you generate the power with the palm.
Well, basically, you're just turning your little finger to it.
Yeah.
So you hit with the back of the fingers. Or let's say, for instance, your target is their shoulder blade.
Yeah.
You're hitting the shoulder, the top of the shoulder with the fingers. You're striking the neck, and they're feeling that pain. As soon as they feel that the back of the hand hitting that muscle, you're then going to quickly rotate the small edge of your palm, the outside edge of your palm, or the little finger edge of your palm, rotating it until it's straight out, like a willow leaf palm, and that is the edge of your palm is going to be hitting the collarbone.
Yeah, I've heard people refer to that as a little fish and big. Yeah,
little fish. Yeah, little fish is the little finger, and big fish is the thumb.
Yeah. So
that's for another podcast.
That's for another podcast. So the energy for that is in the rotation now, Steve.
Yeah.
I would say that when we repeat those movements, those palm up blocks and punches 3 times, don't we? And then we go into the palm strike. Now, you can interpret this as, I always think that the first movement of those 3 consecutive palm up punches is probably the most important one. However, and I'm saying this in a loose way because it's a direct application, right? And the next 2 are just repetitions.
Yeah, repetitions for practice.
For practice. Now, I'm not saying that all of them aren't important, because if you're punching someone, you want to be chasing that target because he's moving away with you. Bam, bam, bam.
It does. I was going to say, sorry. It does tend to be a Chinese concept in Chinese martial arts that you do repeat 3 times. Yeah. Okay, 3 is a good number. That's why you get your dim sum mainly in 3s.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's like a lucky number. Yeah, the bow is 3 times, etc., etc., and the bow to your ancestors is in 3s. Yeah. It's all that kind of thing. So you tend to do it 3 times. So yes, you're just repeating it. But Lau Gar does it when they do the iron wire palm, as an example we were talking about the other day. They do that. Sorry, dragon finger, 3 times, and then three edges of palm out, same kind of thing. It's just everybody does these 3s in Chinese culture. It's just a good luck number, as number 9 is.
Right, and now I think this is dragging on a bit with here, and we've got to sort of wrap this up. And what I want to do is I want to finish on. I want to talk about the last technique of Lau Gar I want to talk about is what you would call grind. Actually, we'll do 2 more techniques, but I want to talk about grinding the corn. What technique is that, and why, Steve? And
well, that's just
about the end of it.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, so you've done your palm, and then you're rotating from that position, okay, to leopard's paws.
Yes.
So you're gonna rotate them around in an anti-clockwise
We've skipped
position.
some moves, guys. We've skipped some moves, so don't.
Well, yeah,
worried.
not everything needs to be
No,
described.
no.
I'm just only suggesting the way I do it, and perhaps people can create argument for it or against it, or at least take on board some kind of use for these things. So basically, you are from the palms. You are simply as if you were grinding corn. So you're grabbing hold of a pole which is attached to the grinder, and you're in an anti-clockwise rotation. You're rotating round, and they become leopard's paws, and they strike out as leopard's paws. That's a rotating movement.
But that is preceded by a turnout of the wrist, isn't it? Where we talked about earlier on, like you're separating the arms with your wrists, and then you can move on to. You can interpret the leopard's paw as a grab as well. But
and it's an explosive wrist movement, as in exactly the same way as our second set, right? Often people misinterpret the second set. You watch anyone on a YouTube or whatever, when they're performing the second set, and they're always bringing their hand back, then they drop the wrist, and then they take it out as a wrist, right? Well, if you do that taking that wrist out has absolutely no martial performance in any shape or form. It just becomes dangerous, right? Because if you're trying to do it forwards, you have the likelihood of your wrist being overextended. When you hit the body, all he has to do is slightly turn, and he's going to twist your wrist, and that could be by accident. So the only way you're going to use that wrist like that is to strike outwards, sideways. Okay, now in this case, it's exactly the same move, but it's done with two hands. So basically you're bouncing it, and it bounces directly back to a target, or in this case you could say he's got your hands in he's gripped your wrists. You are using another example of how to escape, and it isn't a forward motion, okay, it's an option to go backwards. So what's happening is you bounce those hands out, you're escaping the grip, but in order to help you escape the grip, you're kicking backwards, and as you kick backwards, it's throwing your momentum backwards.
So that kick, guys, you can interpret as a kick, or you could interpret it as you're kicking your body weight backwards in the momentum, and drawing them on to the next technique, which would be the double leopard paw, or
the rotation,
the corn, or whatever. I think we'll stop there with that. If that's okay, and just very briefly, I want you to talk about why do we have this funny pose at the end of Lau Gar Look Up Kuhn? What's that about?
Yeah, that's just a traditional pose of. There is a statue in Shaolin that is in that position, and I guess they just respect that. Whichever individual that may be. If it is an individual, I don't know.
I don't know. But again, it's like you're posing. It's a statue. But can you make a martial application for it, or do you really need to, or is that just looking too deep into it? Do you know what I mean? So it's like
it is a simple because it finishes on a pose, so it's not like it's striking or doing anything. Like we said, it tends to finish as a strike or a release or whatever. So these two things is one low block, one high block. So it's just basically a pose in position. There is no strike in that at that point. So it is just simply respecting its identity, I guess, Shaolin.
Sure. And of course, you finish off with your palms and then looking over to the left and to finish the form.
Exactly the same as you started.
Yeah, bang on. So, guys,
and should I add? You're supposed to be in the same damn position.
There you go.
How many of you can actually arrive back in the same position
that you started in? Ooh. That's right. Well, guys, I really hope that you kind of followed us there, and I appreciate with these later sets, certainly this one and Back by German we'll be talking about next. It kind of gets a bit heavy in terms of how
send us a clip, guys. Send us a little clip on your phone, and just let us ask a question.
If there's anything you're unsure of what we're talking, guys, get in contact with us. Facebook. Send us videos. That's always good. You know, you can send us it on Messenger and all the rest of it.
Yeah, or you can send us if you send us an email or a message on our site, you can basically say, what the are you talking about? Show me what you mean by this bit, and then repeat what I've just said, and then I'll try to show you on video camera. I'm quite happy to video it on my phone and then just send it straight to you. Make sure you give us an address.
Yeah, guys, with an email address. Means.
Well, no. Messenger, if they're on Messenger, it's better because you'll get more out of it. Well, but you have to condense it if it's. So I try to make it very short.
Well, yes, but we do have Google Drive, so we can send you longer videos. But obviously, guys, it's time constraints of us. All the rest of it, we.
I don't want to get into sending everybody massive long video explanation. No. But if they want to understand what we're doing, we'll be doing videos and stick them on our YouTube site, and that's what they can get. But for them personally, I'm quite happy to give them a little answer to their basic questions,
and we extend this courtesy to everybody. Not a problem. We welcome it. We welcome the questions. We welcome you, and most of all, we thank you for listening to us. We really appreciate all the downloads. We appreciate all the likes and subscriptions and stuff like that. But guys, please do it. Go on our Facebook, like our pages, follow us, like us on Podbean, like us on YouTube. That really to show our, if you're taking something from this, at the very least, could you just show your appreciation by doing that? We would really appreciate that. And in turn, guys, we're here to help you out, offer a different point of view and all the rest of it. And guys, you've got the resources of Steve here, who I'm sure you're aware is he was the Guardian Man of the Year.
Sat in Canada on his own.
That's it. Hey, he was the Guardian Man of the Year. Don't you know? His trophy was huge. So, guys, use it. Because he might not be around for longer.
Thanks.
Not to be morbid or nothing,
No, well, I mean, there's a big virus going around right now.
True. That's true. You can't kung fu the corona.
No.
Right, guys, well, once again, thank you so much for listening to us on another episode of the Kung Fu Podcast. Spread the word, tell people about us. That would be great. And guys, stay safe and keep training hard, and take care of yourselves. Bye now. Are you going to say bye?
Bye. Sorry, I was just reading the emails.
No,
bye.
Should we do that again? Take care, guys. Bye now.
Oh, bye, guys.
I kick your little Beijing ass right now, man. I ain't scared of you. I know you know that little tricky shit. Come on.
Hi guys, thanks so much for joining us on the Kung Fu Podcast. If you like that and you want to find out more about us, you can head over to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram or YouTube and find us under SJN Martial Arts. And also guys, this podcast is available on Podbean and iTunes. So until next time, take care of yourselves and we'll see you again on the Kung Fu Podcast.
Guns. Now why doesn't somebody pull off 45 and bang, settle it?
No guns.